Okay. Well, welcome, Sheri. I'm so glad that we were able to coordinate this chat because I think this is a really important topic. And I think as the whole idea of this podcast is to default to our extraordinary selves. And to do that, I think we have to embrace everything. And I do know that that healthcare decision day is upon us, and many people don't even know what that is. And so I'm excited to create some awareness. So we met through our passion for essential oils.
Mhm.
And I've been so it's been fun to watch your journey and hear your story. And I think that I'm just so glad that you are here to share a little bit of that, share your expertise with us so that we can think about this end of life process and making our healthcare decisions differently. And so that we can default to our extraordinary selves along the journey. So maybe just if you could just introduce yourself to the audience here, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Julie, I really appreciate you calling and connecting about this because it is really important. It's become a passion of mine. I am a geriatric nurse practitioner, and so I've been dealing with geriatrics, mostly older people, in the last part of my 45-year career as a nurse. And I worked in the hospitals and ICUs a lot. And I also have family experiences, which are very different, between being in the medical world and being in the personal world. So, one thing there was always missing pieces. When you're in the hospital, everything is physical. It really is. Sometimes it's mental health. We do try to bring that in more now than we used to, but we're still missing something in my gut. I found, so as I was nearing the end of my career at the VA, retired from the VA about 7 years ago. I was like, I need to get more holistic. For myself, for the world, for everybody, and blend more holistic modalities. So my first one I got into was Pilates, movement therapy. It helped, so I had to learn more to help people. Then I got into essential oils because they worked. The chemistry of them made a big difference. Once I realized it wasn't just a coincidence, and I learned a little bit of the science, I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. And then I started being a magnet for death, but not in a bad way, you know. But I seemed to be there, and I seemed to, like, I wasn't doing it on purpose or anything, but I would just find that I would be able to bring some education to people in their most fearful moments. And that education seemed to give them tools to be able to deal with it and work through it. And then when my mom died, this is a long introduction here, but when my mom died 24 or 5 years ago now, as I was holding her and her body, holding the body as her spirit left her body, and I just got the chills, and I gave her permission, and I said, oh my goodness, I feel like a doula, a doula who helps a baby transition into the world, brings that baby and the spirit and the life into the world. I felt just like that in reverse. I really did. And I didn't even know it was a thing. So as I finished, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was being this magnet in this situation for these other people. And I realized there is a thing called end of life doula. So I actually took a certification course. I looked, there are many, many, many out there. And you can go to the NEDA website, NEDA, and they list all the ones that they approve, so to speak. And they are certification courses at this point. There are some college courses as well, But anyway, I decided to take the one called Doulagivers. It started in 2012 by a hospice nurse. And she and I just connected. Like, I felt like the things she had to say, she experienced what I experienced. And what it is death isn't a medical experience that we learn and our culture learns. It's a human experience. And so I took her course out of curiosity. Now, I'm a nurse and I've been with many people who died and family members, but I wanted to take the course and learn what it was. And I was so glad I did, because an end of life doula is really a non medical profession. And so what I do now is I'm an adjunct trainer with them. And our goal is to educate everybody, because whether we know it or not, 100% of us are going to die, or we're going to have know somebody who's going to die, right?
Right.
And when our loved ones die, I don't care if we're a nurse who even works in hospice. I don't care what it is. That person, the family, and that person needs support. They really do, because it's all different. Everything goes out the window when you are so connected. And the caregivers, a family caregiver, a loved one, shouldn't have to bear so much responsibility. An end of life doula fills the gap. When I would always recommend hospice to my patients in the day and today, because they fill a gap that the regular medical model just can't fill. But they're under the guidelines of Medicare. And special insurance says a nurse can go 1 hour a day or what have you. There's a huge gap. And they say there's like 84 million people now over 65. That's a lot. And 20% of them, I can't even do the math, don't even have children.
Mm.
So, our culture has kind of grown up to be our children take care of us, but we've gotten away from that and we don't know how to do it. So end of life doulas really help people decrease the fear with education and planning. If we plan now our end of life, and there's more to it than just a one-page advance directive. There is way more to it, because think of if you're planning to have a baby, or think if you're planning a wedding, or you're planning to buy a new car, or heck, even a washer and dryer. You put some research into it.
Yeah.
And so I like to provide a safe space to begin with where we can talk about it. And so I do things like death talks, where it's like a non-judgmental, safe place, and it's very organic conversations. Like that's just, and then we go to advanced directives, or we go to support, grief kind of topics, grief for ourselves, grief for others, forgiveness, really important things. Okay. So anyway, that's what I'm doing these days. And I still
Yeah,
work.
you have such a powerful story. First of all, I'm struck by just the awesomeness of you took your experiences and you listened to them. So, and this has created this beautiful opportunity for you really to bring this to our culture and to the humans around you. I love that. That's inspired. Like some painful experiences and some confusing experiences, some things that maybe were a little scary, and just hearing how you leaned into that to maybe it's just some of those things are just the things that call us to what we're supposed to be doing. You said you were a death magnet, and that has not been an experience that I'm familiar with. And so I'm just so glad there's you out there,
No.
doing this important work. You said that death is not a medical experience, it's a human experience. And We're both nurses, so we are around death, and we can get really casual about how we talk about it, but that doesn't mean that we're comfortable. So that's where I am too. I like, especially talking to people that I'm close to about maybe their own death or about
Yeah.
my death or about our death. That's when I can feel that I'm not completely equipped to do that. I have not done the work to process this. Um, so I'm really glad to know that there is a specialty out there that you are there to bring this to the world. I'm curious about what you would want most to change about our culture as far as how we deal with the end of life, and what are the things that, even given some of the things that I just shared,
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
you say to that, all of that?
Well, I think what you were saying, you fall right in the general population of, we might think about it, but we don't talk about it enough. And so we're trying to change that in our society to make it, to normalize the talk of death. When we can get over that hurdle, then we have a whole new perspective on life. We really do. And so in the planning for the end of life, it's like we always say, it's like Simon Sinek says, right? What's your why? What's your why? Well, I like to think of that with end of life issues too. What is your why? And then we work backwards. So, like, for example, what's important to us before we get to the end of our life? So, in my family, it Thanksgiving, we all talk, we all do our advance directives. We update it if we want to, or we leave it alone. It takes us 5 minutes at this point because we talk about it all year long
Wow. Yeah.
when things come up. How do you get to that? Is what you're getting at, I think. And it's hard in the beginning. And if you need to have someone else come from the outside in to bring up the discussions or to keep steering back to the topic, then maybe that would be worth it. And this is valuable because with the planning comes a lot of peace of mind for a person who's dying, and peace of mind for the people who are going to be left behind grieving. The
Yeah.
people left behind, if the planning hadn't taken place, for example, a person is in the end of their life, they're in the last week or two, and the family starts arguing over what situation, how we should do this. Should we leave her in the hospice house? Should we bring her home? How can we afford to get extra care in at this point? How long will this go on? There's so many unanswered things. But with the planning, and I usually like to plan A, B, and C, and we divert it back to what did that person want? What would they have wanted? If you're able to get all this out of a person, or for example, one of the ones I use is the 5 wishes. You can get it online. Okay, 5
Uh-huh.
wishes.
Okay.
It goes
I'll
into
put the
so many.
link to that. There's probably a link then to that?
Yeah, it's with
Okay.
Aging with Dignity. They put it out. But there's so many more things to think of than who is, like, yes, you have to have a healthcare proxy named 1 and 2. So they can talk on your behalf. They don't talk what they want. They are going to represent what you want. They're going to represent what you put in your forms because they knew it so well. They knew you so well. Today, too many people may or may not just write down, like John Smith is my husband. He's my healthcare advocate. Well, sometimes John Smith isn't the best person because he's going to do what he wants
Yeah.
for the person.
That's an
Um,
interesting thing too. How many times do you see people maybe designate somebody that isn't maybe close family? Because I a lot of times think, having been in the trauma unit, I see people, young people come through. So it's not just we think of death and we think about planning for death for aging or when you're sick or when it's, coming
Right.
around the around the bend. But what about when we're surprised by it? And I think when you said that, I think about I have a couple nurse like friends, colleagues that I would trust to inform the decision and ask the right questions. And they
Yes.
aren't necessarily people that my family might not even know them, but they could come in and ask questions. How often do you see that, like just a trusted, like
Yeah.
having an expert at the ready to ask the questions and help your family make decisions like that?
Yes. I think that is a great idea. And then you would have to decide in that situation, do you want to like incorporate that person into your living will, saying you want them there to advocate for you and guide you? Do you want them to be your healthcare proxy and actually be the one to make the decisions on your behalf, not because of what they know? Yes, that's important. But on the other hand, would you want that person to be an advocate to help, like, hold the hand and educate your family, say your family or friend that you did write down as your healthcare proxy? So you can do that. You can write down and be so specific in a more unconventional, which we're trying to get these to be conventional. This is 5 wishes. And then I have another one that I use. It's 9 questions, it's called. And it's very new and it's not quite out there as popular yet, but it's good
Huh.
because questions you're asking are real. When we go into the hospital, they'll say, do you have a healthcare advocate? Yes, no. And if you say no, sometimes they just move right on to the next. It's like, hello. When I come in and I'm having a knee surgery on Sunday or Monday. And when I come in with my advanced directives, they're going to go, but it is what it is, right?
Well, I mean, that also speaks to that. I know that I work in surgery and we talk about advanced directives. I ask that question to my patients every single time. Every single patient gets a question about, do you have an advanced directive, a living will, a durable power of attorney for healthcare? And yeah, we just move on then. Yes or no, that's all we want to know. But
Mhm.
uh, because too, like, okay, so if somebody comes in to get a knee replacement, we're not thinking they're going to need it.
Right.
So, but because it's because we're wanting to reassure them that they're not going to need it, we glaze over it, and then that
Right.
makes it abnormal, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think another thing I learned, how every bit of experience we have in our world, one of the first legal care consultant I did work, it was a 67-year-old lady who went in for a routine knee surgery, who ended up dying later. And she never came back from it. She never left the facility, kind of thing. But anyway, so like in my so I like people to plan, not only because I know someone else will talk more and more in depth about the advanced directives. I just want people to know that a good death for the person and for the ones standing by, like, it's 80 to 90% better if it's planned and if it's written. So, you talk about risk benefit ratios. Oh, what's the risk of if I have this conversation with my loved ones? They don't
mhm.
want to talk about it. And you did ask a question, like a lot of people have asked me before I actually kind of became a death doula. A lot of people were putting me down as their advocate, like in my
Mhm.
in-law family. And my in-laws, like, I don't live near them or anything, but like all of a sudden because they knew I had a little medical experience, they thought I'd make the best decisions. But I want them to know I'm not going to make decisions based on what I know. I'm going to make decisions based on what I know my experience, but what I know about what you want and how you want things.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, I would imagine it'd be easier to make decisions like that, knowing what they know. Like it comes
And
to
educate
mind.
them along the way. For example, like people don't know what it's like to be intubated, or people don't know what it's like. So you have to really educate them.
Hmm.
It's not like TV when you're gonna, have a code and then 5 minutes later you're gonna walk out.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, um, and like, how do you want to end your life? Do you want to take 6 months of taking every possible medical treatment possible and maybe have some side effects? Or if the likelihood is that that 6 months is going to give you, would you rather go back to your why? What's important to you living? Is it important? Would you rather take this opportunity to reconnect with people or tell people you loved them that you were too busy telling? You were too busy working or something. Like, live your life out the way it's intended, and then you feel, um, it helps your peace of mind as you get closer to the end, because you have more peace about fulfilling what's important to you, especially when we put back the consideration that it is going to happen to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, almost 100% of the time. Did you say almost 100% of the
Did I
time?
say almost? I
No,
said,
I think you said 100% of the time, right?
yeah,
It affects all of us whether we're going to experience it or not. And I say that because you could be cut short quickly and not have to
yes.
deal with it, but somebody's going to have to deal with it. I
Hmm.
also, but in those circumstances, I also wonder if this helps us when we by answering those questions, we're also living out our why way before the end of our life
We
because
get,
we thought about it and we've been intentional. I wonder about that. I wonder about would that help us age, you know, deal with aging better too?
yeah, I definitely think it's a huge part of it, because we're living life to the fullest, way more, I think. Um, yeah, there's a song, Live Like You're Dying,
Uh-huh.
right? It's really true. I think it's important. And
What are
when,
some of the 5 wishes?
okay, okay, 5 wishes. Number one, your healthcare proxy, the person I want to make the decisions for me when I can't. When
Okay.
I can't say it, they're going to say what I would want from my heart. And two is the kind of medical treatment I want or I don't want. And that is kind of nice because it um, goes into, like, do I want to be tube fed? If I have dementia, for example, do I want to be spoon fed? Because first of all, we know that there's risk for aspiration, there's risk for pneumonia, there's risks like that. And like what I have on mine is, if I can't put the food in my mouth, and I'm not asking for you to put the food in my mouth, don't put the food in my mouth. My body will shut down accordingly. And they say it's not that painful, but as an outsider, as a family member, we think, oh, they're starving, and it's terrible. But really, our body just shuts down naturally. And if, like I say, if I have the dementia and I can't literally do this, or for whatever reason I can't, but maybe I'm hungry and I'm alert and oriented, kind of thing. If I just can't do it, both my arms are broken or something, I will say, put the food in my mouth, and yes, you have your permission there, right? um so that's an example of one thing I would want to do to me. Life support, of course. And you can write in different scenarios. Like, I want to be intubated for 3 days and give everybody, like, I have a terminal illness and someone comes along and intubates me by mistake. It happens. Keep me intubated for 3 months or 3 days and take me off if, use the medical wisdom along with whatever. But before I go on, I want to say, you asked a question in the beginning, what have I found the most interesting, or one of the key things that we've all been missing in all this whole thing? It's the spiritual. Like, we have the physical, we have some mental,
Mhm.
the spiritual, the energetic. And I don't mean religion, although religion plays a part. It's the energetic level that makes us a person, a being, brings that baby into the world, takes that person away out of their body, that spiritual being. And I know I jumped around, but to me, that's like really important. And the more things I learn about just all this holistic stuff and medical, we can't forget, and we need to start bringing in the energetic awareness of a spirit that the person has inside them. And that helps determine their why and their will and their this and their that.
Yeah, I would say that I think that's what I'm responding to when I get so inspired and touched by even your story. The experiences that you had were for you because you had a calling, you had a purpose in while you're here. And that I
Yeah,
think that speaks to that spiritual nature. We are connected. Everything is connected.
right.
And I believe that we
It's
are meant to operate interdependently. And so that means
exactly.
that I need you to step into your gifts and step into that role that you are meant to play, what you were created for. And to see you do that so beautifully I think that's what I'm responding to. And I think that speaks to the spirit of it as well. But the spiritual part of it is also the mystery that we have to get comfortable with. And I think do you think that is what kind of keeps us from, we can't get comfortable because we can't explain it, or we can't
The
bring it
mystery.
in?
It's magical. It's mystery for sure. But when I was holding my mom and I felt that body leave, or I
Yeah.
mean, the spirit leave, it was like a hammer went down on me. And it took me a while, a decade, to really unravel it all. But the more I was there, um, you see, it. And when I'm with people and they have visitations, as it's called, where they're near the end of their life, they're in a coma, they're really not talking, and then all of a sudden they'll say, oh, let them in, or so and so's at the door, or 50 people are surrounding me right now. They're not lying, because you can feel the pressure of the energy of all this. And people can say woo woo, but you know what? There's energy. And I don't understand it all. And for people who do Reiki and things, they feel a different kind of pulse wave through people. It's an
Mhm.
energetic wave. Um, and then there's a lot of science that, when people have all the electrodes on and everything, and the brain waves, they can see the different kinds of, I'll just say, excitement or what have you. And they'll correlate it even with the near death experiences, which people have like died and come back while they were having these electrodes on. For whatever reason, they were able to measure there was real brain activity going on that correlated in some way. What was the movie After Death? It was recently in a movie theater. I don't know. Just do a little research. We'll find that. But there was so much research that it was overwhelming on the after death experiences and how there was energy going on.
Yeah. I've heard powerful talks even done like in the hospital setting to help healthcare professionals manage this, because there is that time, like, even if you don't lean into it, we've all been in that end of life experience. And well, not all of us, but if you've been in that end of life experience, you know that there's just a knowing that you can't explain, or a feeling that you can't, that
Yeah.
that spiritual part of it. And I've heard those stories, but even telling those stories outside of that context with people that aren't experiencing that, that's even uncomfortable. Where do you think,
We have
I
to
mean,
own it. We have to
yeah,
own
like, what do you
it.
think, what's a good question for us to ask ourselves about where that fear is coming from, or what would it look like to get comfortable with the end of life?
I think fear comes from not knowing. And yet we don't know what we don't know. So if we're more open and we're actually reaching out to find more answers, we're open enough to consider some things that come our way in the form of education. And education is several things, but like for just an ease of mind kind of thing for lay people, like I start with like a talk and I drop in little pieces of this and that so that there will be some discussion because and it grows. I think it just grows. And we have to remember to be present. We have to remember to be non-judgmental and let people know that there's so much more. It's not just about death. It's not really just about that 5-minute period where the person dies. It's about all the stuff that lives up to that. And the spirit moves on, maybe, but that a part of that spirit goes into everybody. Like you said, we're all interconnected. So it doesn't matter if, like, I remember different patients that I knew for less than 8 hours and they died. I didn't know a lot about them, but I remember situations, or I remember this 32-year-old, he had 2 kids. He died on Christmas Eve alone. I remember an 18-year-old and what size shoes he wore. And just different things. What I'm getting at is one person who comes in the world and dies, they affect their loved ones, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their nurses. They just affect everybody. And so in that, our spirits connect and we move on and we all move together. Did that answer your question?
I don't remember what my question, what would it look like, but that's so powerful. I'm just kind of getting more and more curious about that too, because how powerful is it to know that as you think about the end of your life and your 5 wishes and the all of the things, as we educate ourselves and we start thinking about that, how powerful it is to remember that our stories and our spirit, our energy is going to affect so many people. We can't understand that either. Like, we have no idea. There are people that we probably aren't thinking of that are going to be impacted by our life and by our
Mhm.
death, and by
Yeah,
just by that we've shared that human experience.
right.
Um, that's pretty powerful.
Mhm. So I'm going to finish the 5 wishes on number
Okay.
3.
Yeah.
My wish for how comfortable I want to be. There's a whole list of like 10 or 12 considerations, and you can you say X or circle. Um, you can write in other things. For example, I wish to have religious or spiritual readings or poems. Like I've been there where we've surrounded people with the people from their church have come and sung and brought music at the bedside, and they were wonderful, not just prayers. I want my lips are really dry like right now. I want somebody to make sure my lips are moist. Like, keep me moist. Okay, wish 4. It goes on like that.
Shave my legs.
Yes, put toenail polish on me. What oils you might want. So I had one man, he loved magnolias, and he'd sit under his magnolia tree every day. And every day he'd go out there. Well, he couldn't, the last 2 or 3 days. So I brought the magnolia flowers in to him and rubbed them, and the essence filled the room,
Nice. Yeah. I've
My
a
wish.
lot of times wondered about the advanced directives with the oils. Like,
So I created one called Soul Connection, and it's like just really special for end of life and the people around them. So 4 is for my wish for how I want people to treat me. Like, to example, same thing. There's a whole list of things to choose from if you want, just to spur your thinking, and then you can write down whatever you want. I wish to have members of my faith community told that I'm sick and asked to pray for me. I wish to be cared for with kindness, cheerfulness, not sadness. Things like that. Number 5, my wish for what I want my loved ones to know. And this one is really cool. It goes on for a little bit. Lots of things to choose from and lots of things to fill in. So it's very specific and individualized. If anyone asks how I want to be remembered, please say the following about me. And you write in. I wish for my family and friends to know that I do not fear death. I think it is not the end, but a new beginning for me. Those are just examples. There's a lot under there.
do you complete those a lot with people who aren't comfortable and don't,
Yeah.
like, who says, I want people to know that I'm scared?
Yes, we just
Yeah.
cross that off. Like, for example, we would cross that off and write that in an explanation. Yeah, because once again, we have to respect that person and what their wishes are. So if the person says, I have no fear, I want to be treated not with sadness. Well, if everybody around the room is sad, but someone brings up the fact, they really, John Smith doesn't want you to be sad right now. He wants you to make the most of this moment. He wants you to be happy and have happy thoughts about good memories or what have you. Versus the opposite. If he wants to know how sad he is, go for it. And everybody still could talk to the person in the way that they will feel most at peace. And in doing so, we're so connected that it's going to send off, I think, more peace for everyone around, knowing you did the right thing.
Yeah, right now it's coming to my mind. I have a woman in my life that um was dying, and she had 2 small kids, and we went to see one. The movie name is escaping me right now, but it was a similar experience where the mom is dying, and the kids, like, they come in and, say goodbye to her. She says she, makes them a quilt. It's all beautiful, right? And I think there was a movie actually that didn't go that way, but when it came for her to die, neither one of her kids even wanted to go in and say, like, one of them just refused and never did. And knowing that, like, it doesn't always, my point is that it doesn't always go the way it goes in the movies or the way we want it to go. So even when, I guess, when we say, I guess, to drop the heroics, right? To like, to just be honest with what we want or what we feel so that people know, and that it's really important for me to see this person or before, and it's okay if they don't, or well, I don't know, like, how do you deal with things like that? Because those are
It's
the hard conversations, like with
well,
family, when you have one person that's comfortable with it and one that's just like, "Yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with that."
Right. So I just try to direct to what did the person want,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
if the person can't do it, because I've had like one guy with 7 kids and in-laws, and some of the people in the room just couldn't go in the room no matter what.
Mhm.
And even if that person dying wanted everybody in the room, if those people could not go in the room, they were doing the best they could,
Uh-huh.
and it was okay. And this person loves you. He'll always love you, and so just trying to let people know that's an important thing, because we don't want people to fear or, feel guilty for decades and ages because they did or didn't do something right.
Yeah.
There's no right and wrong.
Yeah.
And
I like that you said that earlier, like no judgment, and that would be like from all angles, right? Is just
always,
to get to that place.
mhm, and be present. And once again, if like I was in the home, say for the last during that situation, and you can tell the tensions and the this and the that, you know, maybe talk to them. Mm, Sometimes just talking, getting the fear out will be enough support to for them to go into the room because they really wanted to, but they were so afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, things. Yeah, there's no right way.
Yeah. What beautiful work that you do. Again, I we have a long way to go in our culture. I saw you posted something about bringing that into schools for educating
No,
kids on
yeah,
even, and I think how cool that would be to, as a kid, to be able to, like, your parents are comfortable talking about it, and I think that that's, um, again, really important work that you're doing, and I think about all the implications of a whole family or a whole community getting comfortable with going into that place, how we could be prepared, like, even, you mentioned dementia, just before we get into that place, you already know what they want, and so you're
yeah,
not guessing and they're not frustrated trying to communicate with you because we don't know where that point is,
you
right? So
you are so right. And like think back to 1800s. People in the families really took care of their own people. The average age might have only been 45, but starting from the 2 to 4 year olds, they would, and the older children and the wives, they'd all take care of that person.
mhm.
And even um, the parlor, the person would be laid out in the parlor for the funeral,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we don't do that now, because now, like a lot of the families, they'll say, well, what are you going to do? Home health wants to come for 1 hour a week or 1 hour twice a week. What are we going to do? They have a fit that um, it's it's a fit of fear, that they have to take care, physical care, maybe, of someone who is sick or worse yet, dying, and there's unknown. We don't teach. We need to teach and support that, because once
Yeah.
again, we spin our wheels and there's not enough help in this world. There is not enough nurses or healthcare techs. There's just not enough. So we have to teach family it's okay, but yet guide them that, say, a wife of an old man, that wife doesn't have to do everything because she'll burn out.
Yeah. Well, I have lots of curiosity and lots of questions about this. We could probably go on and on, but thank you so much for sharing
Mhm.
that. Is there anything else like that you'd like to share with us, like something
Um,
for us to keep in mind as we explore this topic more? Or I'll put the links to the 5 wishes.
okay.
Are there's the 9 questions available too online?
Um,
Is that yours
I
or?
looking to see if I can put that out there.
Okay. Well, we'll put
I
resources
feel like-
in the show notes. Also want to share with people how to get a hold of you as well. So you're doing some important work here. Maybe somebody has questions for you or wants to see like what I need
Right.
Sheri to work with us or with me.
Yeah.
So share that. And then yeah, again, what do you think? What would you like to leave us with as we
Well,
start on this journey of exploring this?
I just want everyone to know that we all need and deserve to live our very best life until the last breath. And there's not just one way to do that. And we don't do it alone usually because we're interconnected. We can't forget our spiritual aspect. And that's it. And my links, my email is easy. It's Sharon, SHAROEN @mac.com. And I have agewellddiewell.com is my website.
Okay,
And
agewellddiewell.com.
yeah, so it's simple. Because once again, I want everybody to live their best life until their last breath. Age well.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So are those links on your site? Because maybe we'll just go to your website.
No, but
Okay.
not right now, but I'm going to be updating them in April.
Okay. I can put the links separate. All right. Sheri, thank you for your time and for your expertise and the way you show up in the world. It's inspiring. And I just want to acknowledge the way you've leaned into using that experience and understanding it, embracing the mystery, and then sharing it with the rest of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here and all you do. I mean, you just are more wonderful than you know, the way you help everybody learn and grow.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay.
I gotta turn the recording off here. Oh, one more thing. So I have this little section on the website or on my show a lot that is just somebody that says, this is what it looks like when I default to yes. And so it doesn't have to be very long. Would you be willing to like give me a little clip on that?
This is how I default to yes.
Yep. Doesn't have to be, I mean, it doesn't have to be related to what you do, even. It could be whatever comes to mind. What is your extraordinary self? If you get up every day, if you get up today and default to your extraordinary self, what does that look like?
Okay. All right. I just want to, oh gosh,
I know. Put you on the
this is
spot there.
this is the hardest thing, I think, because you have to admit what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Well, see, okay. You know how most podcasts end with, like, hey, I've got one more question for you. Here's the
Yeah.
question I ask everyone. And so my question is, what does it look like to you when you default to your extraordinary self? And usually I would share that ahead of time, but I didn't. So
Okay. I think I have to just say, living my best life, whatever that is. I try to do some self-care to be healthy. I try to make a difference and be non-judgmental. And I try not to hold grudges. And I realize that everybody else has something going on. And I just, go with that. And I
awesome.
bring myself back to that when I'm out of control.
Love it. Okay. So now say, that's what it looks like when I default to yes.
That's what it looks like when I default to yes.
Perfect.
Julie, I'm
I
not
told
sure
you
how
I'm going to
it's
edit
gonna
all
come.
of that out.
I am not sure how that's all going to come out, but
So my little prompt, well, you'll be surprised. I'll pull all that together and take my little prompt out. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off the recording.